Outgoing US President Joe Biden is in a rush to redeem his legacy in Africa, but it won't be easy. Biden arrived in the Angolan capital Luanda after a brief stop in the West African nation of Cape Verde. The three-day trip to Angola, many analysts say, represents a final desperate attempt to fulfill a promise Biden made a long time ago and counter China's expanding influence on the continent. But why did the president choose to fulfill this promise just at the tail end of his term? It clearly indicates the continent was not a priority for his administration. However, not many Africans are hopeful either of returning President Donald Trump, who once made a derogatory slur about African nations. Here's a report.
Biden first promised to visit Africa in December 2022, 2 years into his presidency, which some note was already too late. He made the promise at a US-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, where 49 African leaders gathered. The US is all in on Africa and all in with Africa, Biden had declared at the time. He also announced a support package of $55 billion to the African Union. The Biden administration has hosted several African leaders in the White House, but the promised visit never materialized until now. His pit stop in a little-known West African island of Cape Verde came as a huge surprise to many, even though it was strategic for America and the region's ties and trade. The visit to Luanda will see Biden focus on an $800 million US-backed railway project in the Lobito corridor. The passage is a strategic trade route that connects the resource-rich Democratic Republic of Congo (DRC) and Zambia to Angola, which hosts the port of Lobito located on the Atlantic Ocean. Funded largely by the US and the European Union, the Lobito Atlantic Railway project will see an existing rail network in the Lobito corridor upgraded. That would allow for the fastest export of cobalt and copper, amongst other minerals mined from the DRC's Kolwezi mining town to the west.
With their setting up of the Lobito corridor, there should be a lot more trade between Congo and Zambia and the western side of the globe, so to speak. Why do I say the western side? Because presently most of the critical mineral resources and the strategic minerals are exported out of the eastern side of Africa, mostly through Dar es Salaam into China and Asia.
US influence on the continent has been waning for years, even as China and Russia have strengthened their presence in several countries. China has, since 2013, overtaken the US to become Africa's largest trade partner. This year, the US lost a major spy base in the West African nation of Niger, and its army got kicked out of Chad. That has left it struggling to find a military foothold in the Sahel region, which has become a hotspot of violence by a range of armed groups. Several top officials, including Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, have visited African countries at various times. Meanwhile, Biden found time to travel elsewhere. He has visited the United Kingdom alone 5 times, apart from numerous other visits to Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. While President Biden has finally fulfilled his promise to visit Africa, his administration hasn't been able to accomplish some of the other goals it set for itself. However, analysts say Washington's view of Lourenço's government ignores alleged human rights violations under his watch. Lourenço is unpopular among many Angolans due to high living costs, corruption, and mounting crackdowns on dissent. In June, authorities opened fire on protesters angry at inflation, killing 8 people in the central Huambo province. Several others were arrested in cities across the country. The African Union was admitted as a permanent member of the G20 in September 2023. However, no African country is still a permanent member of the UNSC.
It's very hateful to a continent of 1.4 billion people, 54 countries. It can be a shithole. So we are extremely offended, but I think it speaks more of the man's character than what Africa is.
During his first term in 2018, Donald Trump caused a storm with his derogatory statement of African nations being a shithole continent. That statement drew fury and resentment across the world. Although skeptical, many critics say a Trump presidency is likely to focus only on trade relations as it did the first time. The incoming administration will likely want to compete with Chinese and Russian influence and land access to critical minerals. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.